Hello, my name is Nidal Wadi, and welcome to I Love College Podcast at Home Edition. It turns out doing an interview show with people from my community relies on those same people being available to do those interviews, and studio hours just so happen to overlap with business hours. And, some people have jobs. So I bit the bullet and got myself a pair of microphones to go guerrilla style and get some conversations on record outside of the studio. I feel personally obligated to state that myself and every guest I will be having on are aware of the dangers of the COVID-19 virus. We've all signed on to the collective sense of responsibility and have been making sure to do the right stuff and take proper health and safety precautions. I am aware that there are some people who don't care about this thing, even some who believe it to be a hoax, quote unquote, and I feel sorry for those people. In my opinion, it takes no skin off your back to be considerate, to be compassionate, or even to be clean. So let's continue to help each other out. That being said, this time I'm sitting down with my mother, Betty Wadi, who I love dearly, to chat about her upbringing, life as a nurturer, and her educational background. It's not uncommon for children to love their mothers, but this lady really does mean a whole lot to me. I gave her a hard time in my teenage years, but she has always been a person that I can talk to and share my feelings with. Being able to open up to and converse with the people you love is important, especially in the stressful times we're living through today. So, without further ado, here's the talk. Hello, Mama. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing good, son. How are you?
I'm not too bad. It's very exciting to sit down and have a chat with you today on record.
Yes.
It's something I've always wanted to do, and now that I have a little platform where I could put out some recorded conversations, I figured, well, I gotta have my mama on. We've had talks like this, I feel like, since I was very little.
Absolutely.
So it's really fun to have you on. To start us off, I'll go ahead and ask you if you could give me a score on your feelings today or on your feelings recently from 1 to 10. 1 being, I'm melting, and 10 being, we're off to see the wizard.
Well, actually, I'm always ready to go see the wizard.
Yeah.
Especially when I have my son here with me and my children, and just being a typical mom. I love being with my children. You know that.
It's very natural for you.
Absolutely.
I admire you, and I've always wanted to mimic your attitude. I would say I feel almost as close to a 10 as I can be, being here talking to you, and any day that I get to talk to you.
Thank you.
You have never been afraid of engaging me in conversation since I was little. That makes me feel very lucky to be your son. Sometimes I feel like maybe you even helped to fuel my passion for talking.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
So I'm really happy to have you on. I want to talk to you about your upbringing a little bit. Would you tell me about where you come from and where you grew up?
Well, I was born in Lafayette, Louisiana, and raised out there until I was about 5, 6 years old. We moved out here to Houston, Texas. I think the reason why we moved out here was because I had an aunt and uncle that lived here, so my dad decided that he wanted to try something different, so we moved out here to Texas, and I've been here ever since.
And I'm glad you did, because it's been a lot of fun growing up in Texas. I can't imagine what our life would have been like if you had stayed in Louisiana and never met my father.
Right. We've been, some country folks for sure.
The influence is strong.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your household specifically and the role you feel you played among your parents, your siblings, and your extended family.
Oh, wow. Well, I come from a family of 7 kids, and of course, mom and dad. And dad was not home very much, but mom raised us basically on her own. A woman of didn't speak very much English when she moved here, and she, it was just a single mom basically with 7 children, and I was number 5 of the whole bunch. So, and I was always the one that was trying to do things and trying to help mom around the house, and just be the child that I could be,
Mm,
the best child.
it was a part of your nature, right? You said
Absolutely.
she didn't speak a lot of English, but she was
No.
born in the United States, right?
She was, but she was a Louisiana girl, and
Mm-hmm.
she spoke her French. And
Oh.
yes, absolutely, she spoke her French, and I spoke it as well until I came here, and then going to school here and things like that. I didn't lose it. I still remember some of it. I can't speak very much of it, but
Mm-hmm.
I can still hang out with the big dogs if I have
Mm-hmm,
to.
mm-hmm. By the time I came around, it was just something that would be sprinkled in every now and again. It
Absolutely,
was a lot of
absolutely.
fun, and it fueled my interest in learning French whenever I got to high school and started taking languages
Right.
and such. So it seems like the most consistent trait you've possessed since youth is that you care for people. Do you
Absolutely.
remember when you noticed this about yourself, and what can you tell me about where, in your perspective, where this behavior stems from?
Well, I I was always, I don't know, I just love family. I always took care of my mom when she was sick. I took care of my dad when he had surgeries, and traveling back and forth to Louisiana as a child, being with my grandmother and one of my true loving aunts that I just totally adored when I was a child. It was just so much love and caring in the family, and we didn't have much,
Mm-hmm.
but what we did have was love for each other and a lot of care for each other, and I think that's where it all came from. um, Grandmother would go visit with her, and she taught us how to be little ladies, and care for others and serve others, and that's where I took all of that from. And my mother was the most loving, caring human being you can ever come across. So that's where it all came from.
Mm-hmm. So, some may call it old fashioned these days. It's more conventional,
Right.
but at its core, it is just that caring for people
Absolutely.
and having love in your heart. And that's
Absolutely.
something that I've always appreciated having in the home
Yeah.
for, as long as I can remember
Right.
growing up with you.
Right.
So as I've matured, I've grown a sincere appreciation for my family, the family
Right.
that you started and raised me in. They're my built-in support system that helps keep me afloat. Would you say that your family is the most important aspect of your life?
Oh, yes, most definitely. My family, like I said, starting from where my mother, she did whatever she could to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me a strong woman. That made me realize that when I have children, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that my children have what it takes to survive.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be any, high fashion, expensive things, but they're going to know what it is to take care of a family, to love a family, and to be a good, loving, caring family. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I had a strong foundation on that, and that's what my mother instilled in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank her very much, and she made me the strong woman that I am today.
Yes, and of course I thank her for that, for being your foundation so that you could be my strong foundation.
Yeah.
And when you talk about family, we have a pretty big one at this point.
Yes.
Tell me about how many children and grandchildren do you have at this point?
Oh, I have four of the most wonderful children, my opinion, and they are.
Especially the last one. That's that's me.
Especially the last one. And I have eight of the most amazing little grandchildren. And it seems like every time I think of, I look into their eyes and I can see the love and compassion that I have for my children, and it just grows. It's just the most amazing feeling in the world. You can have anything in the world, but the love of a child that you feel is the most priceless thing. It is priceless.
I've definitely, as I've grown up, I now live with my the younger of my two older sisters, and she has two children now.
Yes.
And growing up and watching them go from infants to small children, and interacting with them
Hmm.
it's just an ineffable feeling.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
It's really just, it feels like magic. It's
It,
like you're feeling something and you can't even fully understand it, but
no,
you know that it's love.
it is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's talk about the importance of education from your
Mm-hmm.
perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell me about your mother's education?
Well, I don't really know that much about it. The only thing I know is that I don't think she went. She may have gone to first grade, because of their way of living in Louisiana. They were more farmers than they were involved in education.
Mm-hmm.
So when we moved out here, to Texas, she made sure that we were up every morning and getting ready to go to school and things like that. My daddy was not educated. I don't know if he even went to school.
Mm-hmm.
But mom made sure that we had what we needed to go to school, which was very hard for her to even get.
Mm-hmm.
Not having the riches of life and things, and
Right.
not knowing what to do with seven little kids in another state. She did her very best, and she made sure that we went to school.
Even not having so much experience in the schooling system
Right?
herself,
Not at
she
all.
understood that it was important for her children
Right.
to have that
Yes, yes.
experience.
She used to get up, and no matter what the weather was, and she would walk us to school. We had no transportation. We had to walk. That's a cliche people would say, back in the days. You don't know how hard it is until you have to walk to school. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I know that feeling.
Mhm.
So,
That's
yes.
a big meme on the internet now is
Yes.
people who say when your daddy or your granddaddy says I had to walk up and down the hill backwards upside down in the rain and the snow to get to school, you don't even understand what struggle is and things
Yeah.
like that, but it's true that there were
Yeah.
difficulties that you experienced when you were
Absolutely.
little.
Absolutely, it was.
And really quick, tell me about the area that you moved to whenever you moved to Houston.
Well, the first area we moved into was right off of I-10. It was called Denver Harbor,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a nice little area, to what I could remember and stuff like that. And the little elementary school was like 8, 9 blocks down the street, so we had to walk there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay. It was okay. It was not the best,
Right.
but we survived.
Mm-hmm.
Mom made sure that everything that we needed, she tried to get for us, and it was a hard childhood, but to look back on it now, it was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was good
You've
because I had my brothers and sisters, and I had
right.
my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what family was all about. And when you have that, you don't need anything else.
Mm-hmm. You've taken me down and I've driven with you in the passenger seat, and you've shown me around some of the areas of town that you grew up in,
Right.
and some of the schools that you went to.
Right. Right.
Is there
Right.
anything significant you can recall about the schools that you attended?
Ah, well, let's see. There was one little school, Scroggins Elementary. It was a good little school. I did plays at school. Believe it or
Really?
not, I did. I
Oh, I didn't
did.
know that.
I did perform at school. I was in choir. I can't sing right now. Can't carry a note in my pocket.
Oh, but she can
But
whistle.
oh, I can whistle. Um, and then my junior high school, which was Hamburg Junior High, in Aldine, was the
Mm-hmm.
school, the high school, the middle school that I went to. And then I went to MacArthur High School
Mm-hmm.
and didn't graduate, but it was good times.
Mm-hmm.
It was struggle. It was a very, very hard time for us, but it was good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, being raised just with a mom
Mm-hmm.
and not having much,
Right.
but you know I love being in school.
Mm-hmm. And being raised with just a mother is something that I can relate to.
Yeah.
Being raised primarily just with you.
Right. Right.
And thankfully you were able to provide so much more for me than I can
Absolutely.
imagine you had whenever you
Absolutely.
were a child in school.
Yeah.
How did you feel about school as a child? Do you believe that you were a good student?
No, I was not.
Well, that's comforting.
I was
Honestly,
not.
that's comforting
You
to hear
know,
coming from my perspective.
I'm being honest. I was a BC kind of student.
Mhm.
And it was not only because of the fact of not wanting the education. It's the fact of the way of life.
Mm-hmm.
It was a struggle. So I think that if I was provided more as a child, I would have definitely
Mm-hmm.
been a number one kid. I really would have.
Well,
Because I've always, wanted to be educated. I've always wanted to stay in school and get more knowledge.
mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, going through that as a child would have been something tremendous,
Mm-hmm.
something awesome.
Well, and that was something you were able to give me from a very young age, is the desire to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I struggled with the concept of formal education,
Right.
because they have very specific things that they need you to learn in order to advance through the system. I never really wanted to conform and go along with those things,
Mm-hmm.
at least
Mm-hmm.
starting in about 6th or 7th grade, I
Right.
didn't.
Right.
But you always made sure that I was aware of the importance of learning things,
Right.
learning new things, and having new experiences.
Right. Because I wanted you to have more than what I had.
Mm-hmm.
Life was difficult for me as a child, and I figured that once I was, become a mom and have a family, and I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, would made it easier for me to be more attentive to my children
Mm-hmm.
and to make sure that they did get education.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I involved myself into the school system.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since your oldest sister started school, I had your oldest brother at the time. He was a little boy. He was a baby, and I used to take him to the schools. And I would volunteer, and I would involve myself in y'all's education. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that my children were getting the right education because it's so important to them
Mm-hmm.
for their future. So what my mom didn't get, she gave it to me. And what I was lacking in, I made sure that I gave it all to y'all. And y'all
Yes.
would get more. You guys would get more.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my whole, outlook of life, to make sure my kids get more than what I had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a struggle, but we did it.
I think so. I think
think
we
so.
did. This is something that's very interesting to me because, of course, I've been hearing stories about our family since I was very little.
Right.
But I didn't know that you involving yourself in your children in our um, schooling
Mm-hmm.
goes back as far as my oldest sibling.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that you were volunteering in the schools whenever my oldest sister and my older brother were in school.
Absolutely. I sure did. I sure did. I'd get up in the morning and take them to school and turn around and go home, get the baby ready, and I was right back in school. I was there for so many years that the kids used to call me the popcorn lady because we would do, fun Fridays. We would do popcorn sales and pickle sales and candy sales and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And we would just have a great time for the children.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of our PTA thing that we were doing. And I absolutely love it. And even to this day, I'm still involved in school. Of course, I work at school.
Yes, of course, it blows my mind to think that it goes back that far, but in my life, I had the experience of being what we knew as a teacher's kid.
Right.
One of my best friends, and my other good friends in elementary school, but one that sticks with me even to this day. We were teachers' kids.
Yes.
We would hang out after school whenever our moms were working on campus. And that started when you volunteered at Salyers Elementary
Right.
when I was a student there. What grade was I in whenever you started volunteering
You
there?
were in kindergarten.
So it was like right away.
No, actually, no. I take that back. I'm sorry. You were in pre-K.
Mm-hmm.
You started pre-K there, and I would come every morning and volunteer with the teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and then I stayed there. And then when you went to kindergarten, I also volunteered,
Mm-hmm.
and your kindergarten teacher was such an amazing woman, Annie Manning. Pitching a little hint for her right there.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to her.
Yes, shout out to her. What a wonderful, wonderful teacher. All of your teachers actually throughout your elementary school year were such great value to your education,
Mm-hmm.
and they helped me out. Annie Manning helped me out to get the position that I got at that school,
Mm-hmm.
because I was there every day and I was volunteering, helping children learn how to read and their basics for school.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had a passion to help children.
Yes.
Always. I mean, kids are our future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who knows? I may have taught the next president of the United States. You
Hey,
never know.
you never know.
You know?
We'll find out
We'll find out in a few years.
Yeah, in a decade or so.
I may not be around to see it, but by golly, I might have my name on that child. But yeah, that's when I started with my job. I got hired on at Salyers Elementary, and I've been there ever since.
Mm-hmm.
15 years.
Wow, and you're still there today.
I'm still there today. I'm a paraprofessional,
Mm-hmm.
and I've gone from working with kindergarten children, supporting the kindergarten classes, to working with the behavior children.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Children with specific
specific emotional problems. You know, and you know, certain lifestyles and stuff like that. Trying to teach them how to handle life and how to deal with certain things that they're going through in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm working with a special education,
Yes.
and absolutely love it. And I'll be there until they kick me out, which I hope is not too soon.
Oh, well, I imagine they'd never want to kick you out.
No,
Someone with as much passion as you have
yes.
for the field.
Absolutely, I do. I can walk down the hallways, and just about every child in that school knows who I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Some of them says, "Oh, there's a mean lady," and someone says, "Oh no, there's the most wonderful teacher in the whole world."
Well, I think that comes from your literacy of emotion
Yes.
and knowing what love is and how to communicate that to children who may need it in different ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I tell my children, you know, I treat them like they were my own. That's how much passion I have for these little kiddos. And when you teach them something and they look up at you and they go, "Wow, that was easy." That's the most rewarding feeling in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
It's to see that little sparkle in those babies' eyes.
Yes.
And I love it. I love it every day.
And it's very important. I'm speaking as your child, who, of course, has had the privilege of having the most time with you, more time with you than probably any kid that you've worked with in a
Right.
school.
Yes.
I can say that it's important in those early years
Absolutely
to have
important.
someone who can guide you in that way and
Yeah.
who can expose you to those experiences, even when you're too young to understand it, even whenever you're so young that all you can think about, in my case, is Nintendo DS and Ben 10 and
Right.
things like that.
Right.
You learn lessons without even knowing you're learning lessons.
Yeah, and I always like to tell my little students that this education that they're getting, that, you know, the things that I'm helping them with, is for their future, you know, and, you know, they get upset at me and things like that, and I tell them it's not for me. I said, you're going to reward me just by picking up that book and reading it. That makes me feel the most rewarded of all. I said, but you're going to realize that reading that book is going to take you to places that you can never imagine. You know, I mean, you will imagine, because it takes you can go to Paris, you can go to Germany just by reading a book.
You were like the translator for the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go.
Yes, absolutely.
You were the person in the classroom
Absolutely.
communicating directly to the
Yes,
children.
absolutely.
The message of that
Yeah,
information.
and teaching them how to read with passion and things like that is very important. It's very important for a child to get an education, you know, because that paves the way for you with such ease once you get the grasp and the concept on how to do it. And education is very important.
It's the foundation.
Absolutely.
It's all about
Absolutely.
the foundation. And for you, it has always been about the foundation.
Absolutely.
As we've talked about already in this conversation.
Right.
So when considering the highest level of education earned by your parents, yourself, and your children, are your feelings about school changed in any way?
Oh, no, I'm still passionate about school. Very passionate about education. You know, like I said, my mom didn't, she probably went to first grade. I went to 11th grade. I didn't graduate from high school.
But you earned an equivalency.
I did. I got my GED. And, I was educated enough within myself to help my children.
Before we go too far, when did you earn your GED? So you were...
I was married at the age of 17.
And that's whenever you left school?
Yes, that's when I left school. And I got my GED 10 years after I graduated, after I got out of school.
So while you were married?
Yeah, while I was married, yes. I was bound and determined to get that education, that GED, because I said... What am I telling my children that go and graduate high school when I didn't even have any type of diploma? And that's just me personally, my own feeling. I'm not saying that anybody else that does that, is bad for them. No. This is the way I was feeling. I wanted to make sure that I had a GED. I didn't graduate high school, but I wanted to make sure that my children seen that it's easier to graduate right then and there when you can, instead of waiting and then trying to get your GED. Because there's a lot of kids that, they quit school and they go get their GED, which is fantastic. I don't see a problem with it.
Well, everyone has their own path.
Right, they all do. They all have their own path. But that was my path. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't saying something to my kids that I didn't do. Now, going to college was completely not for me. Not for me at all. Because I had a family.
You
I had a family.
Married with children.
Yes, I had my kids at home and things like that. And I wanted to spend my spare time, because I had that time too. I was very lucky to have a husband that worked all the time, that could provide for me and my kids, to give me that opportunity to stay home with my kids. So I wanted to make sure that my children got their education.
I love that you bring that up, because you were a housewife, a stay-at-home mom.
Yes.
Of course, who was very involved in their children's education when you were married. But when I was very young, a big life change happened for our family.
Absolutely.
In that you and my father divorced.
Right.
When I was, 7
years old.
So somewhere around there. Later in life, you had to become a provider for your children.
Right.
How did that make you feel? And did you ever feel doubts about your capability?
No. I never had any doubts of what I could do. It was a struggle, and I was bound and determined to make sure, because I had you and your youngest sister.
My oldest.
Your older sister than you.
The younger of my two.
The younger of your two sisters. I had you two at home with me, and I was determined to make sure that you guys would not do without. So I didn't really have to work outside the home when I was married. Like you said, I was a wife and a stay-at-home mom. But when I went out into the field of working, I got 3 jobs just to keep our heads above water.
Tell me about those jobs. Of course, we have the paraprofessional position at Salyers.
Yes, and the same week that I started working there, I had applied for Walmart, and they called me and gave me a second interview, and hired me. And I
What was
stayed
your
there.
position when you started?
When I started, I was cashier, front-end cashier. And then within 4 months, they put me as a customer service manager, which was very amazing, because they didn't do that. They waited, 6 months to a year. But within 4 months, they hired me on as a customer service manager.
They recognized your skills for personability.
Yeah, and dealing with people, dealing with the public, in which I love talking to people and being, kind and courteous to people and helping people out as much as I can.
You even have made friends through just with your position in a retail store at Walmart.
Yes.
You made friends that you even have to this day.
Yes, absolutely. I met some wonderful people at Walmart. They had some really good managers there. It just got a bit, I think the first time I worked there, I had worked 10 years. And then I had quit for a while because of the passing of my mom. It was very hard on me, so I stayed out of work for a while. And then I turned around and they rehired me. And I was there for maybe 8, 9 more years.
Long time.
Yeah,
Too long.
too long.
Too long.
But it was nice. And then I also had a job taking care of an elderly lady that lived in my mother's apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the one that took her to grocery stores, doctor's appointments, and things like that. In between going, working at the school and also working at Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was something that had to be done, and I was bound and determined to making it, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
I made it. I mean, look at my kids now.
Yes, it was difficult. It was very difficult to watch you. I mean, when I was a young child, we would wake up in the mornings together. You would take me to school, which
Yes.
of course was your workplace.
Right.
And then you would take me home from school, and then you would get ready to go to another job.
Right.
And it was hard to not have you at home all the
Yes,
time.
I know.
But for the condemnable nature of Walmart as a corporation, you having that job enabled us to have a way of life that was better than it would have been if you didn't have that extra income.
Right.
And I will, till the day that I'm done breathing, I will appreciate the sacrifices that you made
Thank you, son.
in working those jobs.
Thank you, honey.
For me and my sister, but primarily for me.
Right. Thank you.
Because she was transitioning into college and then
Right.
to university, but I was still a small child.
Right.
Well, big but young.
Yes.
I wasn't super small,
No.
but
No, but you had so much knowledge already and determination within yourself, and I know that I instilled a lot of that into you, and I'm very appreciative of you for accepting that and seeing that what I did was something for my children.
yes, of course. Well, being that I was one of said children,
Yeah.
I would be blind to not understand that.
Yeah, it was hard, and I was very truly blessed of the way that you and your sister, your growing up
Well,
came.
you
came
could have
out,
been a little more blessed. I did give you quite a hard time in my teenage years.
Well, yeah, but not anything that I would say, damaged or did anything wrong. It's more like you were more into confusing, I think, yourself, but I didn't back away from you, and I didn't push you into doing anything. I wanted you to see for yourself the right and the wrong. And I've always tried to instill that within you guys. This is the right way to do things. This is the wrong way. And you know the difference. So whatever choices you're going to make is going to be your choice.
Yes.
I'm not going to sit there and pound into your head and say, you have to do this.
Even if you try.
Even if I tried. Because I know the outcome of that. What's going to happen? You're going to rebel and you're going to go do something wrong. And I didn't want that. I wanted to make sure that between you and I, we had an understanding that you can come to me and talk to me about anything. That I was always going to be there for you, right or wrong. I was going to be right there with you. And we were going to work things out together.
Yes. And I'll admit that I held back at times.
Yes.
But I was never afraid of coming to you and discussing how I was feeling, how things that were happening to us was making me feel. And I'll always be grateful for that.
Good.
That's something that I know a lot of people, and of course I don't have to say this, it goes without saying, but a lot of people don't have that experience. So I always try to be sure to count my blessings, so to speak, and understand that it's a privilege to have somebody in your life from so early on who's willing to communicate with you and treat you like a person.
Right.
And not just do this. I told you to do this. You're not doing this. Why are you the way that you are?
Right, right.
In a way that helped to establish for me a way to not be judgmental
Right.
of other people.
Right, right. Because, I always said, who are we to judge anyone?
Mm-hmm.
That's not our job. Our job is to be here on this earth to take care of each other, to love each other, to treat each other with respect.
Right.
No matter who we are, we respect each other as human beings.
Absolutely.
And that's what I've always believed that. I mean, my mother was high on that. You know, it doesn't matter where you came from, who you are. Respect people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to do in life. That's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you get so much more respect like that. Even if someone turns and looks at you and says something mean and ugly, shrug your shoulders and keep on going.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that is a lesson that helped you out a lot when you worked at Walmart.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Even as a young child,
Mm-hmm.
that helped me out a lot because, but yeah, it does. You just kind of shrug your shoulders and keep going.
Yes,
And
and regardless of how someone may act towards you,
mm-hmm.
how they may look, how they may practice their religion,
Yeah.
it has always been a pleasure to have that lesson instilled
Yes.
from so early on,
Yes.
because we haven't talked about this, but my father immigrated to this country.
Mm-hmm.
He was not born here. He was born in the Middle East, and he was Palestinian. He was Muslim, and you got married in what year?
1976.
19
Bicentennial year.
1976 in the southern United States.
Yes.
You married a man of color.
Yes.
What can you tell me about your experiences during that time as a young wife and as a young mother, raising biracial children and being married to a man of another race? Did you feel any kind of social pressure or any judgment from people around you?
Um, no, and actually, I never gave it a second thought. I never looked at him as anyone different than someone that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't not dawn on me that he was, Middle Eastern or anything like that, which I knew that's where he came from.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know a lot about Middle Eastern people.
Yes.
And but through the years of being involved in the marriage and being involved in that type of situation, it did get difficult at times.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't from my family. It was basically from his side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh,
And it doesn't matter who you are or what background you come from, there can be prejudices.
Oh yes.
And usually that, in my experience, I feel that primarily comes from a lack of exposure to people who are different than you.
Right.
And that, I feel, is something that you have never been afraid of.
No, never.
You have told me before that you always wanted to have a big family with a lot of children.
Oh yes. I sure
And
did.
going back to your background as a nurturer, as someone who is a guiding force for young people primarily and for children, how did you feel about joining into my father's family?
Actually, he was the only one here at the time when we did get married. And then later on in the years, let's see, back in 1989, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting my third child, which is
My sister.
your sister. And your father's brother, well, your uncle, decided that he wanted to bring his children here.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, I've always wanted to have 10 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I already had 4 of the most wonderful, blessed children in the
Well,
world.
at the time,
At the 4,
you
I only
were
had 3.
you were expecting you were expecting
Yeah.
your third.
Yeah. Was that? Yes.
If it was
And,
1989, then yes.
Yes. And here we are. We purchased a home next door to ours that was vacant. And he brought his children down here. My brother-in-law brought his 6...
Everybody was hopping on
Yes.
board the USA train.
And he brought his children here. And we moved him into the house next door. And he had a few teenagers. I think the youngest were twins, and they were like 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the oldest was like 16, 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, they had to be put in school. We had to find doctors for them and, things like that. And
You assisted in that process.
I did. I most certainly did. I made sure that those babies were, which teenagers, babies, to me they were babies.
Well, they were young people.
Young people. I made sure that they had schools that they went to, which was primarily the schools that, your brother and sisters attended. And I made sure that, they had food. I made sure that they had clothes. And, I took care of these kids. And then about a year or so later, their mother moved down. and she lived in the house with them, and I helped her out. She spoke no English, but we did communicate. Very loving lady, and I helped them out and. Made sure they went to school every day, made sure they behaved. And there was one of them that was a little wild child, but I made sure he was straight. And they graduated from school, high school, and they got jobs and they got married and moved away. And to this day, we're still very, very close.
Yes, and even myself, through you, we still. It's important to keep that connection to family, regardless of what the relationship may hold in its past. I believe, like yourself, that family is important.
Family is very important. Even though that we're distanced from some, but when we do get together, it's like we've never been apart.
Well, and especially nowadays, it's difficult to get together with people.
Very difficult.
I mean, impossible.
Absolutely.
Basically.
Absolutely.
Of course, I would like to say it's very admirable that you took on that position for your husband's family.
Yes.
Even though they come from a different background than yourself. And I feel we live in a time right now where differences between people are being exaggerated so heavily to the point where someone may look at their next door neighbor who looks differently than them or may speak a different language than them and feel that they are some kind of threat.
Right.
And you never experienced that.
It never crossed my mind. Never did. To me, like I said, people are people.
Well, you see people first.
I do. I absolutely do.
You don't see someone and say, "Oh, there's a Korean American lady.
No.
There's a Mexican American lady."
No.
That is a lady,
That's
or
a lady.
that is a
That's
human.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would never be, cruel to anyone. That's not my nature. And even if they say something mean and ugly to me, yes, it will hurt me, but I will never retaliate and throw it back at you because it's not right.
And that's how you raised me to be.
Yeah.
Even when I was younger and I didn't really understand that, and if someone were aggressive or rude or cruel to me, I would retaliate.
Right.
I feel like that is just a part of growing up sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
But whenever you experience that growth and you grow in understanding that we are all people and it doesn't matter necessarily your nationality, your citizenship status, what gods you worship and what languages you speak. We all have DNA and we're all made of the same elements, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it goes back to not being judgmental.
No, and believe me, I've been through some hard times as growing up as a kid. I was raised in some rough schools, not only the ones that I've talked about, but I've gone to other schools and it was pretty rough. And people are real ugly and mean. And you think of a child talking like that, and you're like, wow, that's not nice.
And even as a child, you were exposed to people who maybe looked different, maybe came from different cultural backgrounds, and that is also very important.
Yes. And and I see it in the elementary school that I'm in right now, and I tell kids, don't be like that with each other. This is your friend. This is your friend that you spend 8 hours a day with during school time.
This person right here, you spend more time with them than maybe your own mother.
Absolutely. And I'll protect any child, any human being. I'll protect. That's just who I am.
It's like you were a natural born parent.
I think so. I used to take in stray animals and take care of them. I mean, come on.
It sounds like one of your daughters may have inherited that from you.
I think so.
I had a lot of pets when I was little.
Yeah.
For anyone that knows you, of course, it goes without saying that you're an excellent mother.
Thank you.
It seems like everywhere you go, people want you to be their mama.
Yeah.
Whenever I would visit you when you worked at Walmart, in recent years when I've come to visit you at Salyers, people will say, "Oh, hey, brother."
Yeah.
Hey, little brother.
Yes.
That's my mama too, you know? And I'm like, ha ha ha, yes. But on the inside, I'm like, no, back up.
I still get called Mama Wadi at school. Yes, I do. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Considering I was the fourth and last biological child, and of course, the last of many children that
Yes,
you
in
you
the
helped
family.
to parent,
Absolutely.
and I wasn't even the last because
Yeah.
7 months later you had your first grandchild from my
Yes.
oldest sibling.
Yes.
Raising me compared to when you were raising my older siblings and my cousins,
Mm-hmm.
can you recall any specific things that changed in your parenting style? Because to give a little background, you had just turned 40 when I was born.
Yes.
And whenever my oldest sibling was born, you were.
I was 17. Yes, not quite 18 yet when she was born. And then I was 21
Mm-hmm.
when your brother was born. And then your other sister, I was 30.
Yes.
And
And you took a decade of a break
yes,
to cook
a
another one.
decade. And then when I turned 40, I think was it what, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you were born.
Mm-hmm. 3 weeks.
3 weeks later,
Mm-hmm.
you were born. So
Very long range of time that you had.
absolutely, absolutely. And the difference between that, I can tell you right now, is that as a young mother, a teen mother, you can say, it was difficult because I was still very young myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had some maturing to do, and I had to do it quickly because I was a mommy.
Mm-hmm.
So raising the two oldest ones compared to my last two, compared to, well, actually to you, actually, because there's 10 years between the third and the fourth, the second,
Mm-hmm.
third, and fourth, almost 10 years. Maturity. I was able to step back and view things in more of a mature way.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I had to be more independent with you guys, with the last two, than I was with the two oldest ones because I didn't have to, work to pay bills and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing. It's just maturity that I had to go through myself.
Mm-hmm.
It made it easier as an older mom.
Mm-hmm.
It
Well,
made it easier.
do you believe you grew a better understanding of yourself?
Yes, I sure did. I sure did. Because when I was young, I thought I was just the meanest little whippersnapper you can come around. But no, and I thought I was going to be the most, toughest mom and this and that and the other. But I realized that I didn't do too bad on the first two. They
Mm-hmm.
turned out very well. They're married and
They have
they
degrees.
degrees and have children, and they're doing very well. I just think that I would have never changed anything.
Mm-hmm. And your two oldest have degrees.
Yes.
Your third has a degree.
Yes.
And your fourth is now on his way.
That's right, baby.
Even after having doubts about it.
Absolutely. And you
And-
did. You
mhm.
had big doubts about going to college. You did not want to go.
Yes.
But I didn't push you.
Mm-hmm. You allowed me
I
to come to
allowed
the
you-
conclusion
yes,
on my own.
I allowed you to stand on your own foundation.
Mm-hmm.
To realize that you need that steady foundation of an education, of a degree, some type, to make it better for your life.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what led me to start going to college, which has led me to doing this, which
Yes.
is something that I love to do.
Absolutely. You've always loved to do this, and I'm so proud of you. I'm really
Even
proud that you got the opportunity to do it.
I've talked before on recording about my history of liking podcasts,
Yes.
but even before I discovered podcasts, when I was in elementary school, you worked at that elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
and we would commute to the school together in the morning, and we would listen to the talk radio.
Yes.
We would listen to Rula and Ryan
Yes.
on the radio, and it taught me to have an appreciation for conversation
Mm-hmm.
and to have an appreciation for humor
Mm-hmm.
when I was so young.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of my favorite things about life
Yes.
is engaging with other people,
Right.
sharing words, sharing stories, and getting some humor or just a little positivity at least from the
Right.
experience,
Right.
because I feel we all have something to learn from every person that we interact with.
Right, absolutely. And even though that, listening to the radio station, some of the things were on there were a little bit too mature. But I do have to say that one thing, your curiosity was broad. You wanted to know. And I felt so privileged that you came to me and you would ask me questions, and you and I can discuss things in a adult fashion.
Mm-hmm. Go figure. I now in my early adult years, I've got myself a pair of microphones and I'm recording conversations.
I was one that did not carry on a conversation very well because I really didn't know how. And speaking to you and listening to your broadness of words, you just educated me so well.
And
I'm still not the best speaker but you make me feel more confident with myself.
well, I'm glad that I could do that.
Yes.
And I think it's worth noting that you had that experience because as much as we've spent so much time talking about your history and when you were young, things that you experienced, there is so much to be learned from people who are your senior, from people who have experienced more life than you. But a lot of people believe that there's nothing to be learned from young people.
There's a lot to be learned from young people. There is. There's so much because their minds are so fresh and they're so curious. They want to know everything. And sometimes they know more than you do.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
thanks to inventions like the internet,
Oh, my.
where
Whew.
the wealth of knowledge of all of civilization is available at any given moment.
Yeah, but if they can just be directed into the right path, you know, with their wanting to know more, that would be so good for them. I mean, it'd be better. Instead of just letting them get on the internet and just explore for themselves.
Well,
Give them direction.
I think you can learn anything
Yes.
on the internet.
Yes.
But I don't believe you can learn everything.
No, you
from the
cannot
internet.
learn everything. No, you have to have that interaction with humans.
There has to be
you
a
know.
balance.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the internet today is even allowing humans to interact with each other
Yes.
in ways that you never could before. Like, for instance, the last episode of this show, I had an interview with my childhood friend,
Yes.
Hayden, who was my fellow teacher's kid who would
Yes.
hang out with me before and after school.
My other son.
And we communicated and had a conversation from miles and miles away from a whole other city.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important as technology develops to not lose the value of interacting with other
Right.
people and
Absolutely.
understanding other people,
Right.
especially at a time when people are seemingly losing their grasp on humanity
Right,
and turning
right.
against each other.
And we need that human contact. We need to have each other. We need to take care of each other. And I will always believe that until the day I die.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And through that, it will live on in my heart
Yes.
because that is how I
Yay.
conduct myself.
Yay.
So I'm glad that we could have some human interaction today. And like I said, it's always a good day when I get to see you, Mama, and when I get to talk to you.
Thank you, son. Same here.
So
You're my love. You're the love of my life. What
we
can I
have a
say?
joke, me and my younger of my two older sisters, we have a joke that you call me my son.
Yes, my son.
So
He's my son.
Mimi's always like, "Oh, your mama called. She was asking about her my son today." And I'm like, "She loves me all right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're
absolutely.
jealous, but Mama loves me."
Yes, my son.
And
yes.
you have love for all of us, and
I
that's
do.
been very important.
I
So
really do.
I love you,
I love you.
and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And son, I wish you the best luck in the whole world. You keep this up, you're going to skyrocket with this.
Well, I'll try my best.
I know you will.
All right, Mama.
All right, baby. Thank you, honey.
There you have it, folks. Me and my mom. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as we enjoyed having it. Getting a chance to communicate with someone you love is always a blessing in my opinion. If you enjoyed this episode, I would very much appreciate it if you'd give us some feedback. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more cool stuff. LSC Montgomery's Visual and Performing Arts Department can be found on Facebook as well as Instagram at LSC-M Arts. Check us out over there for updates on more content we've got in the pipeline for this season. This has been I Love College Podcast. My name is Nidal Wadi, and until next time, stay safe and stay sane. Thank you very much.